When Bill Goldberg kicked me in the head and ended my career, it was such a lousy way to go because I didn't know my career was over. And when I did go home, and it took me a year to find out that my career was over. And right around the time I found out that I couldn't, like what doctors told me that I could never wrestle again, then the WCW fired me. And like from the day I got hurt, my $1 million salary got cut. Every week it got cut in half and got cut in half and got cut in half and kept getting cut in half till there was nothing left. And then they just fired me, which was such a lousy deal. I had, when I was in WWE, I had a insurance policy through Vince that, if I slipped in the shower, I was totally covered. My contract was paid in full. But when I signed with WCW, they gave me an insurance policy with Lloyd's of London. And if you know anything about Lloyd's of London, they don't like to pay anybody. They like those premiums. They like you to keep paying those, but when it comes time to settle up and pay when they're supposed to, they are total bullshit. And they would not pay me, and I had to sue them, and I had to go through court. And I think when looking back on those times, I was concussed so badly that I really couldn't really digest that my career was over and sort of get my head around it. Part of me was like, finally, I'm free. I don't have to go anywhere this weekend, and I can be home, and you like being home, but when you have a concussion like the one I had, I remember I couldn't watch TV, I couldn't listen to music, I couldn't, had even food. I can remember like my whole diet, like everything that I would eat. I had no, like you could have the best steak in the world and it tasted like liver and nothing really mattered. I remember my doctor described it to me as kind of like all the places that make you happy in your brain, that's the part that got whacked. That's the part that got kicked really hard. And, I didn't really understand it or take it all in so much at the time, but, I got hurt by Goldberg, and he called me 8 months after it happened and told me that he was sorry, which, really was irrelevant at that point. He never once called me after it happened, or I don't think he ever understood, or I don't know that he even does now or even cares that he honestly cost me $16 million in like 2 seconds and ended my career. And when I hear about Bill Goldberg going to Saudi Arabia making $3 million for a 10-minute match in Saudi Arabia, I go, you think he would have called me up and said, here, I'm going to send you something for it. But he's never thought of me once since he got hurt, since I got hurt. And it bothers me a little bit to see all these guys go there and make enormous sums of money for a couple minutes work. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Daniel Bryan, who didn't go. I don't know that I would have gone. I don't know that I wouldn't have. It's it was a lot of money, $3 million to a pro wrestler, especially Goldberg, who went there and wrestled for 10 minutes. And, it's a big paycheck. So, if someone offered me the same thing, I don't know if I would have turned it down or I would have accepted it. But anyway, I didn't really have a chance to digest a lot of what happened to me. And I never really had I was always like very angry inside. And then, of course, I know everyone knows too much about my stroke, but I had my stroke about a year or two after I got hurt, a little over a year and a half after I got injured with a concussion. I suffered a stroke riding my bicycle in Calgary on a bike path. And I think, when I suffered the stroke, it was definitely tied in with my concussion injury. But that for sure was the end of my career. It's like any thought of ever going back or burying the hatchet with Vince or my concussion sort of slowly getting better, that enough that I could have some kind of a match or do something, that was impossible at that point. And I think when I remember being in my hospital bed and being in a wheelchair those first 5 or 6 days, it was like really just really powerfully struck me how I'll never walk out to the wrestling crowd with the hands out and stuff like that. So I was very I took all that like really bad. I didn't like that, and I realized that when I had my stroke, I think that there was a part of me that realized that it doesn't do you any good. Like if I was going to give advice to everybody out there, it's like when you suffer something really huge happens in your life in a negative way, and you hate somebody and you're so angry about it, it doesn't do you any good to carry it around all the time. You know, I carried it around. I always liken it to carrying a big bag of rocks around. It was like every day I had to pick up these bag of rocks about how I'm mad at Vince McMahon and the screw job, and you know, you lug it around every day. And then of course I had the stroke, and so it's like I realized after I had my stroke, after about a year, maybe the first year, or maybe this going into like a year after, it's like how lucky I was that I got the recovery that I did have. And I learned the hard way that it doesn't do any good to carry around a lot of grief and heartache in your. So the idea that you know, of course, I would never walk out to the ring. I remember thinking I'll never do that again. You know, that'll never happen.
I would have loved to have worked a little bit more with Bret Hart, and I would have loved more than anything to have not kicked Bret Hart in the head, you know, and what happened. There have been things said on the internet, either by Bret or other people, that I was malicious and he shouldn't have been in the ring with me. And hey, I'm really sorry, man, but if I really wanted to hurt the guy, he would never have gotten up. Okay, and I'm no joke. He would have gotten up. But accidents happen, and he was an idol of mine and still is. And that's one thing that I'll forever be remorseful for is the misplaced kick. And we did kind of know it was coming, but you know, there are a couple things in my career that I wish I could have changed. That was one of them. The length that I had an angle with him and my inability to be professional enough to pull the kick. But it meant very much to me to be believable. I didn't want to present a character that, no offense, but was like a Ric Flair. You know, I'm not the woo. I don't run around and be goofy and, you know, entertain people like that. I'm a competitor. I'm not an entertainer. So if what I do in competing entertains, then I'm ecstatic. But I didn't set out to be a sideshow by any stretch of the imagination. My 2 to 5 to 10 minute, I'm stretching it a little bit, matches were basically like throwing people to the lions. Okay, it was messy and it was violent and it was over before you knew it. And that's what people loved. It was something different.
Yeah, that's the one match that I always wanted to have. I always dreamed about it. I actually called Bret Hart in 2002. This was after he had the stroke, unfortunately. It's not funny, but I'm like, hey, Bret, you want to wrestle WrestleMania? Come on, let's go. He's like, Kurt, in case you didn't know, I just had a stroke. But no, seriously. This is probably a year after, and I called Bret and I said, I would love to wrestle you at WrestleMania. And he said, Kurt, go yourself. No. He said, listen, I can't do it. And I said, why not? He said, I can't explain to you, but I can't do it. I wish I could, Kurt, but it's not possible. And I understand now, because I'm in a position now where I'm actually too old to wrestle and too banged up to wrestle. And if someone asked me to come back at WrestleMania, of course I do it. No. No. I was kidding. Please. I got a boo for the first time. All right, for you maybe. But But what the was I talking about?
Calling Bret Hart after a stroke to ask him if he would wrestle you.
So I called Bret and I asked him if he would wrestle, and he said no. And I understand why. He knows he can't have the Bret Hart match that he dreamed about. He knows that he can't be the Bret Hart that he expects to be in that ring because he did get a concussion from Goldberg, and then he had the stroke. Yeah, boo, damn Goldberg. That's right. Yeah. Bret Hart, man, the best wrestler in the world, best wrestler ever, best in-ring performer I've ever seen. There's only one other person I put up there with him, and that's Chris Benoit. And but Bret was the man. I mean, I watched tapes and film of him over and over again, and I was absolutely in love with the guy. Not in a gay way, but you know.
The incident with you and Goldberg on Nitro back in 1998, and Eric Bischoff leaving comments about it. Do you look back on that and kind of think that's what happened? That was the situation. No. How do you look back on it now?
Kenny, if you go on, find anything about, you'll never see me change my side of the story of that. I've done interview after interview of it. I've left out always. There's a key part to this that could solve all this, and that is the agent, the producer who did that, who was part of that match. And if you listen to my side of it, I was told exactly what to do. Somehow Bill was there, and Bill has somehow forgot that. I was told to go out and have the match that I had, and for the time that I had, and I tried to have a match, and Bill froze up. And now Bill obviously doesn't want to admit I like Bill, right? I've got nothing against him. I found out this years later, after when his book come out, somebody, because I never read his book, somebody came up to me and said, "Have you read what Goldberg?" I said, "No." Well, because I'd seen Bill loads of times after that, and we were always got on good. And I really liked him because I got on good with him. He seems to forget that there was times when me and Dave Taylor were down at the power plant, and I always helps him. And he helped me out once as well. When I was in a bit of a state one night back years ago, I remember he put me to bed one night and looked after me. But for whatever reason, and I can imagine you imagine Bill coming into this and then getting all of this thrown at him. I can imagine his memories of it it's just overwhelming what he went through. Right, and there's all these things, and I can see how he can look at it in a different way. I've also had mutual friends of ours, and I've told them, look, give him my number and let's just talk about this, because it's ridiculous. I did exactly as I was told. Unfortunately, Bill froze up in the match. There's only so much I could do. The one mistake that I made was not going home early, because he had never had more than a 90-second match, right? And I was told I think it was 6 minutes, and it was 6 minutes. I don't know if we quite made it to 6 minutes. I was told to have a competitive match. The reason I know this is 1998. They were bad years for me, middle of 97 through 98, bad years. But I had sobered myself up over Christmas, and I was completely clean and sober on that night, and had been for several weeks. So I remember it very well. And then we come out, and there was a lack of communication a lot of the times in WCW. We came out. I did my best to get Bill through. I was told to have a competitive match with him, and more of it, to make it look good for Bill, that he could actually do stuff. Mm-hmm. For whatever reason, either he's forgot this or whatever. But the agent told me that. I know that because I've spoke to that agent recently and said, look, are you ever going to tell this story? Because I'm the one who has to keep answering this question, and I've answered it for 20 years, and I've left your name out of it. Anyway, and he said, yeah, you did exactly as I told you to do. Well, it's about time I'm not going to I'm not a grass. I'm not going to say, if he's not going to own up to it. I understand Bill's part of it. I don't understand why this agent hasn't spoke up over the years, or maybe nobody's ever asked him to say it out loud. I did as I was told. I got in there. Bill froze up. If you have half a clue, this is another thing I've offered to do, is to sit with Bill and watch it, and he can pick anybody who he trusts, who knows about wrestling, to sit with me and show me where I took any liberties with him. I'm just doing pro wrestling stuff. I'm not hitting him any harder than I hit anybody else. He says I kick him in the head at one point. Wait, yeah, but I know how to kick people safely. That's my style of wrestling, right? That's the style of wrestling I come from, right? I didn't kick him in the head. It might look like I did, but I didn't. And I hate saying that because I give my tricks away and it bothers me, because I like to keep my mistake about certain things. People think I'm good at whatever, but there's certain things I don't. But we came out, Eric Bischoff came screaming at me. The agent's there. I'm waiting for the agent to go, actually, that's what I told him to do. And here's another thing. If they were that bothered, after a minute or so of this not looking the way they wanted it, why don't they just go to break? I was doing this set time. These are all things that people never seem to think about. You have a timesheet of how long the match is before they're going to go into they can go into a commercial break early, but they're not. They're going to go after, and I give them the 6 minutes that I was told to give them, right? And so I there's nothing in there that people go, oh shit. It's like, oh, you have no idea, because I'm putting them in pro wrestling head scissors and stuff, and actually. So again, if you actually watch it or have half a clue, it's embarrassing when people say this stuff, because it means they really don't know what they're talking about. I have offered to sit and watch this with Bill, whoever, but the agent, Eric Bischoff, come and screaming at me, and I just take everything on the chin. It's another thing, no matter what's ever happened in my career, except for the time when I wasn't in my right mind, because of, well, this night I was. And I said to Eric, I said, I'm sorry, Eric, but I can't hit myself. That's the line that I said. I can't hit myself. What do you want me to do? He wasn't, and Bill's right there. I can't. And I'm just looking at the agent, waiting for him to say, well, calm down. Say, well, I told him to do that, because whatever happened, there was some miscommunication. This is what I was told to do. This particular agent didn't just put his head in his papers and didn't say anything. Right? So I just took it on the chin. If Bill, I'm saying this right now, if Bill wants to do this, I will sit with him, and he can pick whoever he trusts who knows about wrestling, and show me where I took any liberties with him, who knows anything about wrestling. And then it'd be nice if the agent who actually was there, and I've seen him recently, why don't you just tell your side of it? So at least there'll be some kind of whatever. Yeah. Whether Bill wants to believe it after that, that's up to him. But the best thing is if we watched it together, and if he wants to take somebody like The Undertaker or somebody like that, who I would imagine Bill, knows he's not going to give him any nonsense, and watch it and go, right, and where's these liberties? Where's this? Because it didn't happen. I tried to get a match out of somebody who froze up, and then finally we got to the finish. This might offend Bill. If I wanted to take liberties with Bill, Bill wouldn't have walked out of that ring. Because that's one thing I know how to do if I want to. And there is not one other example in America of me doing that with anybody. So why is it all of a sudden that if I'm going to do it, why am I going to do it with Bill? And anybody who said that, it's because they've made this nonsense up about me. You never hear me saying that. I don't claim I'm anything, but I certainly know I could have messed him about something fierce if I'd have wanted to. Go back and watch it, and you'll see me trying to put him in head scissors and put him in, and he's just not doing anything. So I'm having to. But I can't. That's what I do. You know, I mean, I hit
Yeah.
people hard in safe places, but there's nothing dangerous. There's nothing, and that's it. It's about time this all got sorted out. And the reason being, I don't care if Bill, because I've seen Bill loads of times. He said, never, ever said anything to my face. I don't know why. So he goes, he blows off about this, and he never says anything to me when the times we've been in each other's presence, which haven't been a lot. But there were plenty of times after that for a few years, because I went back to WCW, don't forget, a year later, 1999, and I saw him quite a bit. Never said a word about it.